Hello, welcome again. So in this video, I'm going to lay out the 4 shapes of transformation. And these 4 shapes are designed by Ken Wilber. He is the founder of integral theory. And integral theory is a lot of the framework that we will be talking about, which we'll be working with and working through together in this process together. So I'm going to lay down the four shapes that he has identified in terms of how human development goes and what is the most integrated, holistic way that brings together all the sides and the perspectives that bring a holistic, integrated human that is able to show up in the world in a really well-balanced, healthy, grounded way. And the four pillars that he's identified in that is growing up, waking up, cleaning up, and showing up. I'm just going to share this framework here with you to share what we mean by that. So we start with waking up. Waking up has to do with accessing higher states of consciousness that see the reality of your situation with more clarity and depth. This also has to do with having a momentary window into seeing reality more as it is. We often experience these experiences of waking up in, let's say, yoga or dance sessions. These days, there's a lot of cacao ceremonies, breath work, which we work with a lot as well. These provide these waking up experiences. So we have more clarity, more insight into reality as it is. There's more space, if you will, available. We literally are able to see from what we might call a higher perspective or an altered state into these spaces or patterns of ourselves that we either see in our own mind, in our own body, in our own beingness, or in our lives and in the relationships we have and in any context or situation in life. So we're able to take a bigger picture, to see a larger picture, if you will. However, what tends to happen with these waking up experiences is that they momentarily happening. So there's a momentary window into more of reality as it is. So they're not lasting, but we can make them lasting by doing the work of the other 3, which is growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. And it's the combination of these 4 that make a holistic, integrated human being. Yeah, so growing up has to do with clarifying where your life is headed and how you can take responsibility for your developing your greater capacities. Growing up also has to do with really on a day-to-day basis applying to self. This can look like a meditation practice. This can look like some form of movement or breathwork practice, but any sort of practice that is more the boring day-to-day stuff that allows us to see more fully and take more full responsibility for our lives. That has to do with growing up. Growing up also has to do with, and we will go into that later, into levels of consciousness or stages of human maturity. We all have to move through these stages, and it has to do with how mature are we able to look into a certain context or situation, and this is going to lean into showing up already a little bit, but how can we show up in the world with a more full capacity and with more maturity? So this also has a lot to do with emotional maturity, relational maturity, but also maturity in think of business or health. Like how much are we able to respond and take responsibility in our lives? So responsibility is a big word in growing up, including maybe some behaviors that we either like or don't like, and how much are we able to see those and take responsibility for those. Yeah, so that's growing up. Cleaning up is identifying and healing wounds from your past, inherited limiting beliefs, and other shadow material. If you're not familiar with the word shadow basically means anything that we've hidden from ourselves that we don't tend to like about ourselves, a particular trait, a particular way of being, a particular quality that we tend not to like of ourselves. Could be jealousy, could be anger, could be fear, could be all sorts of things. There's certain qualities that we tend to place to the side and place into the unconscious. Certain things we don't like about ourselves, we don't actually want to look up, and cleaning up is starting to really bring that more to the forefront and being with those uncomfortable wounds from the past, some limiting beliefs and some shadow material, to really integrate those parts and clean them up, if you will. Clear the unnecessary stuff, if you will, out of the way. So really clean up what's no longer serving us so that we can move ahead and show up more fully in life again. So now we're going back to showing up again. Cleaning up and growing up also very much go together, in the sense that the more we actually release and let go of old wounds, the more we're able to show up, to grow up more fully. Like we actually become more mature as we let go of some immaturity of ourselves. So of course it sort of like works together. Yeah, it's now we've separated it to make it super clear what these four shapes are, but they all come together in some way or another. So that's cleaning up. And then showing up is bringing it all together so you can live as fully integrated, evolved, and inspired human in the world. This means bringing all of the insights of, whether that's spiritual insights or leadership's insight. You might have read a really good book or talked to a really good friend about, but how are you actually actioning that? How is that showing itself in your life? That has to do with showing up. So to what degree are we able to show up with a more full, integrated capacity in the world? Now, of course, this is a spiral. The more we are able to show up more fully as ourselves, the more we probably will bump into some material that needs some growing up, whether relationally, business-wise, within ourselves, could be anything, which requires us to grow up more. So it requires us to look at that, which probably has to do with then cleaning up again. How are we able to actually be with these places within ourselves and clean up these old wounds and limiting beliefs, which we're probably most likely places in a state of waking up, of like, oh, all of a sudden we have this space, we have more clarity, we have more space available in our minds to see more of reality as it is. Then that moves into growing up again as we make that a more day-to-day reality. What is often missed in a lot of spiritual practice is growing up. So the actual capacity to work with these parts, so to work with the waking up experiences, but actually bring them into our own system in an integrated way and then show up in the world as well. So in a lot of spiritual practices, if someone goes into a monastery, they're working on their waking up. They're probably working to some degree on their cleaning up, but they're not really working on their growing up and their showing up. So there's something missing there. And in a lot of business world today, there's not really any attention on waking up and cleaning up. There's really great capacity for some people to show up. They really get some shit done, and it's really good quality, and it's top notch in that sense. And the level of capacity to communicate that with others and be in a world and be responsible for their actions. And so the level of growing up is really high as well. But how is the level of actually seeing the world as it is and actually seeing and understanding the nature of reality a bit deeper? And how is their capacity to be with old wounds? Often, if we see a mismatch of this of some sort, so we see a disbalance, is where there's disbalance that happens in the system. So we could be neglecting one side of another. And a part of conscious leadership and a part of what's really important as a leader is that we really integrate and bring these parts together. So in the upcoming videos, I will walk through each waking up, cleaning up, growing up, and showing up in more detail, also with some tools and practices of how can you work with these elements more fully in your life and make it a tool of transformation. So we use these four shapes to transform into a more full, conscious leader. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to the next call.